This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 129 of the Dressage Radio Show, brought to you with the generous support of Equestrian Collections. Hello, I'm Chris Stafford and welcome back to the Dressage Radio Show. Joining me this week from Down Under is our friend Brett Parbury. Brett, welcome back to the show.
Hi Chris, always good to be on the show. Since we've spoken last, I went back to Europe to ride Lord of Loxley again, who's in training with Edward Gale. Didn't get a chance to take him to a show because I had to rush back to Australia to prepare for the Australian Championship, so just cut my trip short there. And then came home and got a surprise that Victory Salute was not fit for competition. So it's been an up and down month, but yeah, we're forging forward.
Well, good. And how is he now?
He's okay. I mean, he from a lot of travel. I mean, when you compete internationally from Australia, you have to. There's a lot of travel involved, and from the travelling, we feel that he probably has internally, and especially in the last trip home from Kentucky, probably internally not coped as well as we would have liked, which in a horse of his age, he's 15, which is not old, I must say. I mean, he was sort of really reaching his peak. He developed the early onset of Cushing's disease, so metabolically, he hasn't been right all year. We've been just wondering what's going on. Unfortunately, Cushing's is a disease which is quite hard to detect. Some tests prove that Cushing's is quite a good, is there, and they're good detections of it. But we were trying to avoid the most risky test, which is called the DEX test, and the DEX test will bring about laminitis because you're putting a steroid into the horse. Anyway, long story short, we didn't do that test, and we're trying to sort of skirt around the edges and do the other tests, which were coming up negative. And then, anyway, he had a mild laminitic episode because of Cushing's is virtually like a sugar diabetes in horses. So with an over supply of sugars and starches in his diet, he developed a mild laminitic episode, which then turned into a full-blown episode, of which we think we have him stabilised now. So it's a slow recovery process, but we're hoping that we can bring him back. But he's definitely won't be fit. Well, I mean, it'll be a miraculous recovery if he's fit for London.
Well, fortunately, you do have another horse waiting in the wings, but it's always sad, you know, when you come to that realisation with a horse, you know, because they're just part of the family, isn't it? Aren't they? You know, it doesn't matter how old they are.
That's right. I mean, Victory Salute and I have done a lot together. We've travelled. I've always travelled with him. So, you know, I've spent a lot of time in Europe with just him and I. So he is exactly that. He's part of the family. I love that horse and really couldn't imagine my dressage life without him. So I mean, there was a week there when things were, because he's a big horse, so when you start getting shifting pedal bones with big horses, you know, who knows where it's going to stop. Thankfully, things looked to have stabilised, and there was a week there when I was just beside myself, and you know, the vets were preparing me for the worst, and I must say I'm not good under that sort of pressure, and especially with the big Equitana show coming up and my involvement with that show. There were a couple of days when I just said to someone, "I'm going to explode if the pressure doesn't back off here soon." So but anyway, I mean, at least we can smile and go forward. And thankfully, he looks very, very happy, and you wouldn't even know it, to be honest, if you know, he's that sort of horse. He's just a very highly spirited horse, and he looks fine. So whilst ever he's fine, things are stable. X-rays are showing that nothing's moving. I must say that's the most important thing to me. Is that he's happy and healthy, happy enough to feel good. So
yeah, maintaining that quality of life is all important, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, good luck with that, Brett, and obviously you'll keep us posted on him and how Lord of Loxley's going. I mean, coming into an Olympic year. We're going to be talking about Olympic qualifications too as part of the show this week. But we're also going to be talking about the upcoming Equitana show that this week, actually, as we speak, is happening down there in Australia. So we're going to hear more of that from Brett in just a minute, or a little bit later on in the show as well. But we're also going to talk about the national championships. But before we get into that, because Rachel Sanner, of course, is the new national champion, and so she'll be much in demand right now with that accolade and going into an Olympic year as well. So we'll talk about all of that, but let's just take a quick commercial break, and when we come back we'll get into further conversation with Brett here about the Australian National Championships which just took place. But I want to remind you about Equestrian Collections, one of our valued sponsors here on the Dressage Radio Show. Have you checked out their extensive range of blankets? Because no matter where you are as the winter approaches, they have something for everyone, for all weather conditions, from the popular horseware choices of Amigo, Rhino and Rambo models for turning your horses out in. Be sure you're ready when the weather changes with a brand new blanket from Equestrian Collections. And if you use coupon code HRN at the checkout, you'll get a further $10 off your next order of $100 or more. Equestrian Collections is a participating retailer of the Horse World Gives Back campaign. Well, with me is Brett Parbury. Brett, as you say, you just got... I mean, it's a busy time down under, isn't it? You just got past the National Championships. We're going to talk about Equitana a little bit later on. Now, national champion, now the brand new national champion is Rachel Sanner, a good friend of yours. And I know you were on the sidelines, but tell us how the competition unfolded.
Well, it was an exciting competition because of the fact that it was the first leg of the regional qualifier. Mm-hmm. So the New Zealanders were over, and we had Rachel Sanner and Chantel Wiggin representing Australia. So as soon as you put your national flag on your jacket, there's always pressure. So that was on the Grand Prix, and the New Zealanders did a very, very good job. I think Louisa Hill was their best scorer. Vanessa Way, again, a very good job. So, Nikki Pope was there as well. And they did a fantastic job, the New Zealanders. And then Rachel did a great job. She had a little problem with the first extended trot, but then she's the type of competitor that if she has a problem early in a test, I mean, I know I was sitting with someone and she had this first little blow up in the extended trot, and I said to the person beside me, I said, you watch the nines start coming out now, because she really, I mean, she is just a competitor, and she did exactly that. She just started peeling off eights and nines, and she won the Grand Prix with just under 70. I mean, she would have been well and truly over 70 without the hiccup.
And we should remind everybody that was riding Bev Edwards' 12-year-old Hanoverian gelding, JB Alabaster, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah. So so the championships were great, and then the second leg happened in Ermelo the following week, where the judges flew over to Ermelo, and the South African team and the other Australians competed in Ermelo, which was great. But back on the championships, I mean, Rachel went through and became the Grand Prix champion, and deservedly so. And she did a great special. She was over 70 in the special, over 70 in the Kerr. So yeah, she's well and truly on form, and I've never seen her riding so well and the horse looking so strong. So they're very, very strong going forward to London. Yes,
obviously things going well for her, and there were a lot of other classes as part of those Australian championships, weren't they, Brett? I believe you picked up one of those titles too.
Yeah, I had a good show. I mean, I took my younger horses, so I ended up with an advanced championship, and my other horse was the reserve champion. So they were great. And then we have a Prix St George Challenge for horses from 8 to 10. So I had one of my horses won that. My stable rider, David McKinnon, he won the elementary championship. So we brought a few championships back to here, and I mean, we're just lucky that we have great horses and we're surrounded by great people. So, it's always nice when you can win a championship, and the horses went really well. I mean, I'm very, very happy with the way things are going.
Well, that the advanced champion of yours is QEB Good as Gold. Now, what does the QEB mean?
That's Queensland Equestrian Bloodstock and Glenn Pierce. That's who we bought the horse from. And, I mean, that would be, I think, my next... I mean, him and Weltmeyers are my next horses going forward to Grand Prix. He's probably a little further advanced than Weltmeiser, but I'm very excited by Good as Gold. He's quite a tricky horse because he's very sharp and very sensitive, especially in the indoor arenas. But, you know, I was only saying to someone yesterday that when I came down the centre line for the second test, which is the 5C, which is the equivalent of a ZZ Zoir or a highest level S level test in Germany. So it's the highest level test prior to Prix St George. You know, and he's a sort of horse. I cantered down the centre line and halted, and as I trotted off, I mean, I knew I was sitting on the winner because he just felt so good. And when he's really on, he's on, and he's a beautiful looking horse, very elegant. And I mean, I'm only really tapping into half of what he has to offer. I think the horse will be much better at Grand Prix than he is at any other level because he is such a spectacularly hot horse, but he takes a bit of managing. I'm actually going to take him to Equitana, I think, this week and do the masterclass on him just to expose him to some more environments, you know, the international caliber environment to get him used to everything.
So tell us about that venue where the national championships were, and were they indoors or outdoors, Brett?
They're well, a bit of both. So it's the Olympic venue from Sydney 2000 Olympics.
Okay. Horsley Park.
It's our national, Horsley Park, so our National Equestrian Centre. It's absolutely wonderful. I mean, it's still very well maintained and state-of-the-art facilities and good surfaces and really, I mean, it's just one of the legacies that was left behind by the Olympic Games. And we're very, very lucky to have it. And stabling's great. I mean, Tony Van House, as we've said on many occasions, runs a very, very good show with her team. I mean, we have to always mention her team as well because they're also hardworking and too many to mention, but very, 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 very polished and running a great show. So, yeah, it was just, again, another wonderful championships. And, you know, you really get a good indication of how good the show is when the overseas judges come up to you. And, I mean, I get to know quite a few of the judges now, so I always get a chance to catch up with them, and they come up to me and say, you know, we just love coming here. You know, they get well looked after, and you know they're in a nice venue and things. So yeah, I mean, I had a very good feeling about it, especially when Rachel did so well, and I mean, the level of competition was probably the highest I'd ever seen. I think the Prix St George Challenge was probably the best I'd ever seen as far as quality wise, and yeah, so. Anyone who doesn't think Australian dressage is on the up is certainly not the coalface and seeing it all happening before us, because it's absolutely improving every year.
Well, let's give a shout out to those winners down there for these championships, because it is a big deal, obviously, for Australia, and is an indication of the sport's growth. And we should recognise some of those champions. The Gowgates Intermediate 1 champion was Alexander Burns with King's Legend. The Need for Steeds FEI Prix St George champion was Matthew Dowsley and PSI DiCaprio. Brett, of course, was the advanced champion with QEB Good as Gold. The Hanoverian Horse Society medium champion was Nicole Tuff with Flavio. The Wagner's elementary champion was David McKinnon, as you mentioned. He's one of yours, isn't he, Brett? With Bradgate Park Jats. Ranvate novice champion was Matthew Dowsley with Don DeSandro. And the Cinderella Young Rider Award went to Megan Bryant from New South Wales with Donabella. And the Rod Barker Memorial Trophy went to Nicole Tuff with First Time. And Rachel Sanner, as we know, was the national champion. She also won the Crown Law Memorial Trophy with JB Alabaster. That was just some of the principals from the national championship, which took place just the end of October. And it, as I said, it is a big deal. And presumably you get riders from all over the country, do you, for that, Brett?
Yeah, look, it's a big country, as we know, and there were competitors there from Western Australia, Queensland. I mean, the majority of, dressage is certainly centred over around the East Coast, but between Melbourne and Brisbane. So most of the people were either Victoria, New South Wales, or from Queensland. But we had some Western Australians, we had some South Australians also. So yeah, people do travel long and far to come to the show, and because it is, it's the highlight of everyone's year, really.
Yep.
So
it relies on sponsorship too, and of course.
Absolutely. These things can only. Tony can only work with what she's supported. How she's supported. So we really are thankful to the sponsors, and we really hope that we're delivering for the sponsors as well. It's one thing for them to give us money, and we're very thankful for that, but I really hope they're getting something out of it as well. And we've always, I think we have here quite a good culture for trying to support our sponsors, because we have to work so hard to get sponsorship for the shows and for ourselves. So we actually work very, very hard for our sponsors. And yeah, we're very thankful to them for supporting us. And in what is dressage would be one of the strongest growth equestrian or horse sports in the country. So, very thankful to people for supporting us.
Absolutely. Not least of all the title sponsor there of the 2011 Australian Dressage Championships. That was Bates Saddles, and we'll put a link to their website there on dressagenewsouthwales.com.au, where you can pick up all the links and find all the winners. There's picture galleries as well by the intrepid Franz Venhouse, who's of course Tony's husband. He's always around with a camera these days, isn't he? He's almost your unofficial photographer, isn't he?
Yeah, he's like the paparazzi. You got to watch him. But no, Franz and Tony, as you know, are just the backbone of the sport here, and they do so much for us. It's funny. I was driving out of there on Sunday afternoon after having an exhausting day myself, and there's Franz lifting tables and stacking chairs, and I thought, they're people who really do it for the love and do it for us, because doing it for free, and when everyone's gone home, they're the ones there packing up.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm.
Well, as I said, you can find out more about the Bates Saddles 2011 Australian National Championships, who did what, where and when, by following our link on our website. And we're going to talk now about the all-important Brett, for the elite riders, the high-performance riders down under that qualification for the London 2012 Olympic Games, because that was critical, wasn't it? And to qualify the team is really something for Australia to celebrate.
Absolutely. We really had to have a team there, and whilst we're in a region where, okay, let's face it, the sport's not as strong as some of the other regions in the world. The pressure's still on to be dominant there and to get ourselves in, and the people that were chosen on the team did an outstanding job, and got our names on the invitation list to go to the Olympics. So very, very happy for that.
Very relieved, I would imagine, too.
Yeah.
And now, what is the process then down under for any rider that aspires to make that team, Brett?
Oh, look, it's we have a series of squads. So the elite squad is usually the people who are chosen, who have performed at Grand Prix and shown that they can perform to a high level. That's a selected squad. So usually our representative team comes from the elite squad. If someone wants to make the team, they have to really just perform here, and then possibly then it's not essential to go overseas, but it's always nice if they can go overseas. Our selection process next year is based in Europe, so anyone who wants to make the team to the Games will have to go to Europe and participate in 2 selection events.
Which are those?
So they've made Mannheim in Germany at the end of beginning of May, as one selection, and Compiègne in France as the second selection event. And really, that'll just be coming down to you arrive, you do your job, and if you're in the top 3, you're a good chance of going to the Games. And if you're not, or if it's close, and usually first and second position always pick themselves, and third position will be contested. Then it comes down to the selectors selecting. But if it's clear on who are 1, 2, and 3, I mean, it'll be very easy to select. But I mean, we try to replicate the games environment, and I mean, that's exactly what the games are. You go there, you turn up, and you do your job, and that's what they're trying to replicate in the selection process. So trying to choose the people who are seasoned enough to go there and just deliver on the day. So, I mean, that's really what the selection is. The regional qualifier was between Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa. And because we're all spread out over the world, we invited New Zealand to here. They fly the judges between the two venues. They had one one competition here, and one was held in Ermelo in Holland. The competitors here were probably at a slight advantage because they were involved in a competition, where in Ermelo it was just 6 riders or 8 riders or something arrived and just rode at Ermelo, so there wasn't that whole competition hype as well. But the Australians came out on top with an average of 69, which was just outstanding. When we think back to Kentucky last year, I think our average was about 66, and we were 7th overall. Maybe we were 8th, I can't remember, 7th or 8th, but just pipped out by the Spanish and the Canadians. So between the Canadians, the Spanish, and us, there's very, very small margins, so we could have easily been higher up. But, you know, we're looking at an average of 66, just under 67, and then 3 girls have come out this year and put an average of 69, which is just so exciting for us. So, I mean, it was just wonderful to get ourselves invited to the games and with such a great score and such a great average. So, yeah, it's all going forward. It's all very positive for us.
Oh, good. Well, obviously, there's always, even though Victory Salute may be waiting in the shadows right now to decide what next for him, you have Lord of Loxley and you have other horses coming up. So Lord of Loxley would be your main hope now. Yeah.
I mean, my plans for next year haven't been affected. They've just changed a little bit. So Lord of Loxley now becomes the number 1 hope. He's based in Europe, which means that it'll put us again under quite a bit of pressure to be in Europe competing on him, which means a long time away from home, family, business, the whole thing. But, I mean, it's all part of the Olympic sacrifice, and something that I have to just plan around and try and do. But, yeah, I mean, Rachel come to me and she said, listen, you know, you really have to just put your head down and just be a part of this process, because, you know, we need you there. And I mean, and we do. It doesn't matter who gets selected. It's about the competition that you create in going into the selections, because we don't want to put a team in London that hasn't had to fight, where people haven't had to fight to be on the team. And that's just natural. We want it to be a natural growth in our sport, that we have to compete and be strong to make the team. So Rachel said, look, you know, you've just got to be there and try and do whatever you have to do to be there and be a part of it. And so that's what I'll be doing. I mean, Lord of Loxley hasn't done a Grand Prix yet. He is actually ready. And last night I had dinner with Edward Carl, because he's here for Equitana, and we discussed it, and he said, yes, he's 100% ready for Grand Prix. Let's start looking for shows. So whilst he's inexperienced, I mean, that's my job. I'm the rider, and I've got to get out there and just nurse him through some Grand Prix and try and get his confidence and get some routine behind him at the level. But I mean, the quality of the horse is there's no question there. He's a very, very good quality horse, and I did some shows this year with him, some small tour shows, to get a feel on what he's like in the ring, and he's actually good. So it's just a matter of getting back to Europe and getting into some of the indoor winter shows and getting some routine behind me.
When would you actually go back to Europe then, Brett?
I think I'll have to go in January. I mean, if I'm going to give this a real shot, I have to get over there. I don't want to feel like I'm playing catch-up. So I think the earlier I get there, to be honest, I should be there now. But with Victory Salute being, you know, I want to be here for him, and I want to be here. If next year I'm away so much, I want to be here with my family and my business, and try to get things tidied up here before I actually go and commit to being in Europe for next year. So, I would say January, second or third week in January will be when I'll relocate.
And what about the family then? You'll get at least have Christmas with them. Will they come to Europe with you later on in the year?
Yeah. I think because we're a professional stable. I mean, we have staff. I mean, either my wife or I have to be here at all times to make sure things are going along smoothly. So that limits how much we can travel together, unfortunately. But definitely, I mean, my wife and my baby boy Jake, they'll come over next year to catch up with me, and I'll try and fly home periodically for a week here and there as well. But yeah, I couldn't do that whole stint without either coming back or them coming over. I mean, I'm going to use next year to try and talk to my wife and see if she would even enter the thought of us basing in Europe for maybe either this campaign or maybe the next campaign for the World Games. I mean, with all this travel, the business just takes such a hit. So in some ways, it's a little bit smarter to be based in Europe. But for me to be based in Europe, I have to earn money and earn income. So I may even try and use this trip to try and feel out a little bit of, is it possible that I can survive over there, and see if my wife would enjoy living there, and then maybe for the build-up to the Normandy World Equestrian Games, maybe we base there for a year or something before it.
Well, that would be nice. You get the flavour of French cuisine and, the French lifestyle maybe, or, at least a European culture for a while, some European lifestyle. There's nothing wrong with that, is there?
No, nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's funny. Like, I just hop out of the airport now, and I do that much travel there, and I dread getting on the plane, but I love getting off at the other end. And it's funny. I walk out of Schiphol Airport, and I know exactly where the coffee shop is. I want to buy my coffee, and I go and get my car, and it's like such a routine. I don't even use a Navi anymore, and I do love it in Europe. It's a wonderful place, and there's an electricity that goes with being on the continent and being in the stables over there and in those horse shows. So yeah, I do love it. It's very addictive.
It really is. There's nothing like arriving somewhere and know exactly where to find the coffee shop. And
yeah, exactly.
All right, wonderful. Well, all that to look forward to. Well, obviously we'll have you back on the show as the months unfold in preparation for the 2012 Olympic Games, and to remind everybody that the Horse Radio Network will be there in London. I will be there for coverage of all the Olympic disciplines. So I'll hopefully see you there, Brett. We will get together and we'll do some talking about dressage while we're there.
Yeah,
that's a long way off though. But as you just said earlier, the Equitana is underway in Sydney, and that's a big event for you guys down there, isn't it? So you'll be heading there once we get off the line here. You'll be heading over there. Tell us a little bit about what you expect. There's a grand final and there's a masterclass. There's a lot going on for dressage, isn't there, at Equitana? Yeah,
well, I went to dinner last night with the owners of Equitana, and they were telling me on how ticket sales and things are going, and I think the masterclass with Edward and Hans Peter, there's like 50 tickets left, and I think it holds a bit over 5,000 in the stadium. The grand final concept. So when it comes to dressage, I mean, there's two very exciting things. There's the new concept developed by Equestrian Australia, which is a grand final concept, and the Australian public really associate with grand final because some of the major sporting days of the year in our calendar are based around a grand final of our sports. So rugby league, AFL, and grand final is something that people, the general public, associate with. So the Equestrian Australia came up with a concept. Let's bring the grand final concept across to equestrian and see how it works and market it on that basis. So all three disciplines have a grand final. The dressage grand final is going to be from the freestyle. It's an invite-only show, so they've used some of the events during the year to qualify. The eventing is going to be a 40-20 sort of derivative dressage test, and then they're going to, as eventers do, go up at high speed around the Sydney Showground, jumping both show jumps and prefabricated eventing jumps. And then the show jumping will just be a normal show jumping class. So the grand final concept for dressage is wonderful, and I'm so disappointed I can't be a part of the very first one. I mean, I'd love to be a part of that, but not to be. But yeah, Rachel, Chantel, Heath, Rosie, they'll all be there and fighting for it, so that'll be exciting. And then when it comes to the masterclass and the educational side of Equitana, we're lucky enough to have Edward Carl and Hans-Peter Minderhood out here, and they're good friends of mine, as you know, and I organised them to come out, and so far so good. They're having a wonderful time. We went out on a lovely boat on Sunday with the Oatley family and gave them a nice tour around Sydney Harbour and a lovely lunch, and then last night we went to a lovely seafood restaurant. And,
you have loads of nice seafood restaurants in Sydney.
Oh, we do, yeah. We're very lucky. Yeah, very lucky. And the boys love their food, so we did that with them last night. And today they're just parading themselves around Sydney, doing a bit of shopping and having a day off. And then they're at work. They have to go to work tomorrow, of course. And then, so the masterclass is something that I'm involved in organising, and I'm really excited about the format that we have for the masterclass. It's going to be interesting in the sense that they're going to be riding borrowed horses and borrowed horses, not just Grand Prix, but some younger horses as well, so we can see how the boys ride the younger horses. Mm-hmm. And then I'll sort of work, I will be riding in the masterclass myself, but I'm going to try and work as a bit of an intermediary between Edward and Hans-Peter and the audience, and trying to just ask the questions and relay anything back to the audience that might be lost in translation or anything like that. Ask questions and just try and be a conduit between the presenters, the stars, and the audience. So I'm very excited about it. It should be a lot of fun, and I really like to give people the feeling that that what they're seeing in the arena is something special, such as Edward helping Hans-Peter with a horse and vice versa, and then Edward giving me a hand, or Edward giving some of our riders that we've chosen a hand. And I want the people to feel like they're spying on a training session. I don't want there to be any secrets, and I don't want it to be one of these sort of dressed up master classes where everything's nice and good. I want people to see training of dressage horses. And as we all know, training of any horse is not always smooth, and it's not always the way you want it to go. And I want it to be real. I want people to be able to walk away and say, they have the same problems I have, and that's how they solved it. And I'm a little bit sick and tired of the showcase masterclass where everything looks perfect. You know what I mean?
Well, it never is it?
It's never perfect. I mean, it's a fairy tale to think that training any horse goes smoothly, especially when you're trying to create the most energy from the horse, which we all know we require to compete at a high level. But if it's understandable to the horse and the rewards come at the right time and the corrections come at the right time, then it's training. And that's what I want to put across to the people. And look, Australian people, we know that. I mean, we have a wonderful horse culture in this country, and a lot of good, very, very good horsemen and women. So they know it's not perfect. So you don't, and that's what I said to the boys last night, you don't have to hide any secrets here. People know how training horses works in this country. So really just be natural, let it happen. If something goes wrong, that's actually good, because that's what we want to see. We want to see what goes wrong and how to fix it.
Yeah,
So,
it's all about the process, isn't it? Brett? You know, when things do go wrong, what is the process? What do we typically take it back to the basics, don't we? You know, and just take our time, you know, with the process of it all. When you can't make any shortcuts there.
That's right, exactly. No shortcuts, and absolutely, and you said it, top quality basics. Just come back to the basics, and that's really what I would like people to walk away from the masterclass, is to go, yep, it didn't work, but they came back to these solid basics. And we all know that if people have good basics, you can always get yourself out of trouble. So
you can build your house on a sound foundation.
Yeah, exactly.
And we should point out, though, when you said earlier that you're going to be there to facilitate and help in any interpretation and translation, but it's not because you're fluent in Dutch, is it? It's because you want to make sure the translation in terms of the horse language, not the Dutch language, right? That's
right. Yeah. I mean, my Dutch, is very, very limited, but. Yeah, exactly that. I would like to ask the stupid question, because we all know the stupid question is what is on everyone's mind. It's not actually a stupid question. It's actually the question that could link the whole thing together for someone. And I'm the king of stupid questions, so I said to the boys, it'll be easy for me to ask stupid questions, so I do it naturally. But just to ask the very simple question that someone might just have in the back of their mind, that the boys have said, because we just completed this training DVD that I did here, and it is hard to write and talk, keep on your system, keep on your pattern, watch the clock. No, you've got 10 minutes to go, and you want to cover X, Y, and Z, but the horses, you're not going there with the horse, but you don't want to. So many variables, and I would like to be in the middle, just trying to. It's not about masterclass. It's not about me. I just want everyone to get their value for money, and I hope that I have to say nothing. That would be even better. But I want people to walk away and say, well, we really, really enjoyed that. That was, we know exactly how they work. We know exactly what I have to do, and people to walk. You can't get anything better than people walking out of there and wanting to go and catch their horse and go and train their horse.
Quite.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and we should remind everybody, of course, that Equitana runs from the 10th to the 13th of November at the Sydney Showground. Gosh, it takes me back a long time. Went to the Sydney Showground. You really have some fabulous facilities there, and it is wonderful. Exposition of the equestrian industry by attending Equitana. There's so many, and I know Clayton Fredericks, of course, big friend of the Dressage, of the eventing radio show. He is down there for eventing to.
I had a message from him yesterday. He's here, larger than life, and Clayton is just such a wonderful character. It's always great when he comes back for Equitana, because he is just such a superstar and a wonderful character worldwide. So, it'd be great to catch up with him.
Absolutely. Well, lots going on at Equitana. We'll put a link on our show notes, of course, so you can follow that and make sure, if you're in the area, to visit Equitana and catch up with Brett. Go and say hi to Brett as well. I'm sure he'll be able to translate for you. Anything you didn't understand in Dutch, he'll be able to translate for you.
Providing it's ordering food, or
there you go.
That's about the limit of my Dutch, I'm afraid.
Well, before we go this week, I want to start to read to you an extract from a brand new book, Stories from the Saddle by Samantha Miles, which is an Australian title. It is celebrating biographies of Australian riders from the 3 Olympic disciplines. And of course, here on the Dressage Radio Show, there's no better person to celebrate than Mary Hannah, of course, an expose of Mary Hannah's life in this beautiful new book, Stories from the Saddle. We'll put a link on our website to how you can find that book by Samantha Miles. But here is an extract from the chapter on Mary Hannah. Stories from the Saddle by Samantha Miles. Mary Hannah. Mary Hannah is one of Australia's most respected dressage riders and trainers. She has represented Australia at no fewer than 3 Olympic Games, including Atlanta 1996, Sydney 2000 and Athens 2004. Mary was the first dressage rider from Australia ever to compete in the individual section of Olympic dressage. Mary has also represented Australia in the World Equestrian Championships in 1994 and 1998 on her small but phenomenal horse Mosaic, and again in 2002 on Limbo. Additionally, Mary has been the Australian National Grand Prix champion on 6 occasions. Along with her first husband, Gert Domvig, Mary had played a key role in introducing the warm-blood breed of performance horses to Australia and was a founding member of the Australian Warm Blood Association. Horses have always been a huge part of my life. In my family, riding horses was not an option, but more a compulsory activity. Being brought up on a sheep and cattle property in the western districts of Victoria, daily life usually involved saddling up a horse to go and check paddocks or round up stock. Even as small kids on our ponies, we were always eager to help. Rain, hail or shine, we would be out there. My sister Heather was just as horse-mad as me, and we managed to get up to all sorts of tricks on our ponies. We both loved to jump, and I recall Heather always seemed to end up with a pony that jumped the best. She had one sensational pony called Lantana. That pony could jump anything. In fact, she was such a great jumper that we often had trouble catching her in the paddock. As we approached her, armed with a bucket of feed and halter, she would wait until we were within a few metres before slyly trotting off toward the nearest wire fence and jumping straight over. Her record was 44 fences one morning before a show. Despite being only 14 one-hands high, she became an A-grade show jumper and competed at several royal shows. Heather and I would make show jumps out of anything we could find around the farm, and when we had jumped every possible obstacle we had made, we would head off down the driveway and jump the picket fence or stone wall or the strainer posts next to the gateways. For Lantana, this was too easy, but my pony Joker had nowhere near Lantana's talent, so I would sometimes get left on the wrong side of the fence. On one occasion, he dumped me right in the middle of some barbed wire fencing, which of course ended in tears and left a nasty scar on my arm. While Heather and I could easily spend endless days just playing with our horses, Mum was really into the competitive side of riding. My desire to compete was developed by her. Before she had us, my mother had been a great jumping rider and competed at royal and country shows all around Australia. In her day, jumping was done at speed over enormous telephone poles with water and dishes, and often in teams of 4. There was good money to be won, so she would go on the road with a team of jumpers and make quite a tidy sum, as all her horses were exceptionally talented. She loved the gypsy life and would head off for weeks at a time around New South Wales competing on the show circuit. Heather and I were the children of my mother's second marriage, and my father put the brakes on her gypsy life, encouraging her to spend more time looking after us and helping on the farm. However, the itch was still there, so she would cart us off at as many shows as possible. Dad didn't seem to mind as long as we were the main attraction and she didn't blow the budget, which she was inclined to do on a regular basis. Money being spent on horses was often the subject of serious discussion between my parents, so much so that one day I remember Dad completely spat the dummy and refused to pay the farrier for any more horses to be shod. Being my mother's daughter, I thought, stuff that, and dug out a book we had about how to shoe a horse. Armed with the shoeing gear, nails, and my book, I proceeded to shoe Joker. Fortunately, he was very patient. After 4 sweaty hours, I finally got his 4 feet attached to 4 shoes. It looked pretty ugly, and they only stayed on for about a week, but I think Dad got the message. He gracefully gave in and allowed my mother to call the farrier. I first realised the importance of competition when I was 9 years old. Mum and one of her showy friends had organised for me and her friend's daughter Jan to ride in the pairs class at Melbourne Royal. Jan and I were great friends anyway, so we were very happy to oblige. The mothers went to enormous trouble to make sure everything perfectly matched, from the 2 brown ponies, our jackets and hats, right down to the ponies' brow bands. Jan was a very good rider, and I had placed second in my rider class, so we were hot contenders. All began well. We trotted out into the ring, and the ponies were working nicely, stepping in unison, side by side. We held it together, as per instructions, walk, trot, and canter, and, yes, we were called in first. Feeling pretty pleased with ourselves, we lined up in first position. Of course, being rather excited, we couldn't help chatting. The steward came over and explained what he wanted us to do, and off we trotted. First a circle to the right, and then a smooth change over to the left, and then trot straight across in front of the judges. Whoops! Neither of us could remember if we were meant to do rising trot or sitting trot. Oh, well, you sit and I'll rise, and that way at least one of us will be right, I suggested. Giggling, we trotted back to the judges. Clearly we had not paid enough attention to the instructions, as the judge slipped us down to 3rd place. But we were not too worried. We still had a ribbon and lots of fun doing it. However, all was not well with the mothers. As we came out of the marshalling yard, 2 red-faced women exploded at us. "You girls did not do the correct workout. You just threw that away." Jan's mother was spitting mad, and my mother, usually very well-mannered and rather quiet at competitions, joined in. We were marched back to the stables, literally pulled off our ponies, and, after being stripped of our perfectly matching gear, thrown like a pair of escaped criminals into a stable. My mother refrained from physical violence, but Jan got a good cuff around the ear. No sideshows, no mad mouse, and definitely no fairy floss for us. I am sure, in retrospect, my mother would have been embarrassed by the incident, but for me it was a revelation. Although my mother was usually much less prone to public displays of disappointment, and had taught us to congratulate other competitors and not show any resentment if beaten, it was clear to me that winning was very important, and a measure of your success as a person. Rightly or wrongly, this view has stuck with me for life. Eventually the day came when I was the lucky one who got the good show jumper. My mother purchased a very athletic chestnut thoroughbred called Felspar from the local racehorse trainer for $150. He had no hair on his legs, shocking mud fever, and was skin and bones. But he could jump. I loved him. He was the start of my dreams to compete at the Olympics in the 3-day event. Living in the western districts of Victoria, we were surrounded by Olympic riders such as Laurie Morgan and Bill Roycroft. I was lucky enough to be taught and inspired by Bill at our local pony club. He was fantastic. He really made you feel you could do it. At pony club camp he taught us during the day, and at night regaled us with stories about the Olympics. We hung on his every word. By the time I was 16, I was totally obsessed with the sport of eventing. It was all I dreamed and thought about. Going to the Olympics was my ultimate goal. Everything I planned in my life from then on was about positioning myself to make that dream happen. My father, always the voice of reason, said if I studied hard and did well enough in my exams, he would pay for me to have a horse in Melbourne while I was at university. So I studied like there was no tomorrow and got into arts at Melbourne University. This was conveniently not so far from Oakland's Hunt Club, the then home of the Melbourne 3-day event, which at that time was Australia's premier event. I received a teaching scholarship and held my father to his promise. I ended up with 2 horses while I was studying and had the time of my life. Being so close to Oakland's was brilliant. Every day I rode, I would set my sights on one of the 3-day event fences. Ultimately, and of course illegally, I jumped every fence in the advanced course, including the huge Normandy bank. It was great for my confidence and my horse's confidence. However, although my jumping skills really improved, dressage was my weak link. One day a friend from Oakland said, "Hey Mary, you've got to meet this Danish guy from Stockwell Stud. He knows all about dressage." My friend arranged a dinner party, and it turned out that the dressage guy was rather tall and good-looking and had a beautiful Great Dane dog, which just happened to be my favourite breed at that time. This was enough for me to be immediately weak at the knees and fall madly in love. Stories from the Saddle by Samantha Miles is published by HarperCollins Publishers, 2011. And finally, this week, it's time to hear from the US Dressage Federation. Well, joining me again for the monthly update from the US Dressage Federation is Catherine Robertson. Hi, Catherine, how are you?
I'm fine, Chris. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Of course, you're ramping up now to your convention, your annual convention this year. It gets really busy over there, doesn't it?
Yes, it's very busy. We've got the convention and symposium coming up, and we're also preparing for our trainers conference. It's going to be in Florida in January this year.
Well, all right. So tell us what you have for us this month, then. I believe you have a guest from overseas.
We do. Today we're going to be speaking with Christoph Hess. And Christoph, welcome to the radio show, and thank you for joining us today.
Oh, yes. Hello, Catherine. Nice hearing your voice. I'm just on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean in Germany, especially in Warendorf, which is a little bit the heart of horses here in Central Europe. And I'm very much looking forward listening to you and listening to all these questions. And welcome everybody in the U.S.
Well, Christoph, you're going to be our featured presenter at the Succeed USDF FEI Level Trainers Conference that is coming up in Florida in January. And in a recent write-up that we did in the October issue of USDF's Connection magazine, you said that properly done and understood, Grand Prix is nothing less than the perfection of the basic training. That
Yes.
basic training goes back to the classical system. And can you tell us, what is the classical way of riding?
Yeah, thank you for this, from my point of view, very, very important question. I think before I give a special answer and explain what is a classical way of training, I just want to say that many people, especially spectators who are not so very much involved in the sport, especially in the dressage sport, they often think that training horses on a higher level is a little bit like training dogs for a circus show. But the classical principle how to train horses is basic work, mainly I would say 90% basic work to the scale of training. And there we have 6 things in mind to explain our instructors what they have to do with their horses or horse and rider combinations, because these are the very, very important things. The very first thing is that a horse has to learn to be in a good rhythm, find the right tempo in a good rhythm in all 3 gaits. Then the horse, and this is, I think, very, very important for all horses, especially for dressage horses to get high marks, is that the horses have to be well relaxed in all parts of the test, if possible in all parts of the training session. The next thing is that the horse needs to have a proper contact between the horse's mouth and the rider's hand. And when you say contact, or when I say contact, I mean the whole outline of the horse. That the horse is really stretching his neck, using his neck and seeking the bit. This is the third part. And then to make a test, spectacular in a positive way, means that the horse needs impulsion, that the horse learns to swing, that the horse has cadence in trot work, in the canter work, and has a good covering ground and active walk. This is the 4th thing. And the 5th thing is most of the horses are crooked. And it is very important for the classical way, or when you school the horse in the classical way, to straighten the horse, which is a process from 0 till the end of the days when the horses are under the saddle. Every day you have to straighten your horse. And the very last thing is that you have to collect your horse, because you need collection to bring more weight from the front to the back, because this is important to ride these wonderful movements like piaffe, passage, pirouettes, and all these very difficult movements to be on international or national Grand Prix level.
Christoph, what should trainers do to get better results from their students?
I think if a trainer looks to his horse and rider combinations, he always has to ask, what is wrong with the basic things? I think many trainers often repeat very often movements which are not well presented. But to be honest, when you look behind the curtain, then you will see most of the horse and rider combinations don't have a special problem in the movement. Okay, that is the obvious thing, but the reason of this problem is that the horses and the riders together have problems in the basic things, that they are not in rhythm and canter, for instance, and they try to ride flying changes or periods. If there is not a clear 3-beat rhythm, this will not work. Or when they have not a clear proper contact with a good self-carriage between hand and mouth, the rider's hand and horse's mouth, then they are not able to produce a nice medium or extended trot. Or if the horse is not properly in front of the rider at his or her driving aids, then the rider is not able to produce a proper passage or piaffe. And as long as the rider is not, or if the horse is not in front of the rider, then it is not useful to train all the time piaffe and passage. You always will get bad results. That means that the trainer has to look very, very careful that the basic things are okay, and then he can ask for special movements. And then at the end, he will get better results, higher scores, and better rankings in the different competitions.
And what do you see as some of the main problems in the training system worldwide?
The main thing is that many trainers don't analyze where the problems are coming from, what is the reason, and I think the trainers have to be trained themselves very much in theoretic things as well. Practice is very important, but you have always to look behind the curtain to see what is the theory behind all these things, what we are doing with our horses. And therefore, first thing is they have to school more theoretic things to understand properly the classical way of training. This is the very first thing. And the second thing is that they have to know what are the golden rules, what are the key points which are important for the rider and the horse to be, at the end, successful. And there we have, I would say, 6 or 8 key points which you have to have in mind if you want to be a successful trainer.
Well, thank you, Christoph. You can see and hear more about Christoph's philosophies by visiting eTrack, USDF's online learning center for dressage and equine education. If you want more information on the Succeed USDF FEI Level Trainers Conference and to visit eTrack, you can go to the USDF website at www.usdf.org. Thank you again, Christoph, for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
And back to you, Chris.
Well done. Thank you, Catherine. And just remind us all of those dates for this year's symposium.
Our symposium this year is going to be in San Diego at the Del Mar Fairgrounds. Our symposium will start on Saturday, December 3rd, and we'll have an all-day presentation with the 4 USDF coaches. We'll have a lecture on Saturday night, and the festivities will conclude on Sunday, December 4th, and we will have a very special equine guest joining us on Sunday.
Some surprises there to come. Well, great. Well, thank you so much, Catherine. Thanks again to Christoph Hess joining us from Germany for the USDF's monthly update. And Catherine, we will see you back here next month.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm very much looking forward to seeing all you in January in Florida, and all my very best regards to you and to all American dressage riders. I'm very much looking forward to see you again.
Well, Brett, that about wraps it up for us this week. You, as I said, you've got to run off to Equitana, and then before you know it, it will be Christmas.
I mean, once Equitana's over, that's it for me. There's another big show in Victoria, but we won't be going. And, then it's just a matter of getting ready to go to Europe again and start the whole Olympic year. I mean, as soon as that calendar clicks over to 2012, things get crazy. And you watch, next year there's going to be ups and downs and highs and lows and horses doing this and people doing that. It's just the Olympic year is a crazy year. And I mean, as we've seen already, some big horses have sold, some big-name horses have sold in Europe, and people are just making their, I call it the chess moves. Everyone's making their chess moves before they get into 2012 and before everyone starts looking towards team performances and winning medals and increasing their status on the world scene. So, yeah, it's exciting, and I love it. I mean, that high-level competition is, I mean, I just love doing it and love being a part of it, and I really hope that I can get Lord of Loxley up there and ready to go for the selection events.
Absolutely. Well, full steam ahead for you, Brett. Keep us posted and come back and visit us anytime, won't you? Yeah,
will do, Chris. And before I go, I'd just like to thank you for being a wonderful supporter of Australian dressage, and we really appreciate it. And we appreciate the exposure you give us and the fact you give us airtime on your wonderful show, and thank you very, very much.
Oh, you're very welcome. We will be following you with interest, of course, as Australia gets to London next year, and we'll be keeping you right up to date with how that unfolds here on the Dressage Radio Show. Well, that about wraps it up for me this week. Of course, our thanks to Brett again for joining me this week, and to all of you, wherever you are in the world. Don't forget you can check out all our show notes at dressageradio.com. And I do have a new app before you go. Do you have an iPhone, Brett?
I don't, actually. I have a Samsung. I'm not as fancy as you guys with these iPhones, but I'm happy with my Samsung.
All right. Well, my app of the week is Text and Drive. Text and Drive will actually... it will voice your emails as they come on. Once it's switched on, and if you're driving, it will read to you either the subject heading or the entire email. So that's really useful. And if you upgrade to the Pro version, you can actually reply by voice, so you never have to really look at your phone. So that's my choice of iPhone apps this week. Don't forget the other app, which I've mentioned on the show before, Instacast, which is an app for podcasts, so you can download all the shows on it. Actually, automatically, when you open the app, it will refresh and upload the latest episodes from any of our shows here on the Horse Radio Network. So Instacast on your iPhone. I think you can get it on Android as well. So check those out, and let me know if you have a favourite app, and if it's horse-related too, even better. So that about wraps it up. Don't forget to check our show notes. Join us on Facebook as always, and follow us on Twitter. I will be back at the same time, same place next week. So until then, thank you all for listening.